Hey, welcome back to that God Power channel. This is the channel where we're going to unlock the God Power laying dormant on the inside of you. But first today, what we're going to do is continue breaking down the book of Genesis. Now, last time I told you we were going to break down how we even got to where we are right now in Genesis, which is last chapter we talked about Abram getting his name changed to Abraham because God made a covenant and a promise with him. And he also changed his wife's name, Sarah, to Sarai. I mean, from Sarai to Sarah. Okay? Now, how did we even get to Abram? Let's remind ourselves now. Remember, Genesis started with Adam and Eve. Then they had three sons, Cain, Abel, and Seth. Cain killed Abel. So the oldest Abel was dead. Cain now is there, and then Seth. Now, we went through Cain's line, but that didn't really produce a lot. But Seth's line took us all the way down to Noah. And then Noah, there was a flood and everybody got wiped off. And Noah had three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And then through their lines, we went down through their lines, and I think we went down Shem's line. And this is where we get down to Abram, because we went down Shem's line all the way through Terah, and that's Abram's father. And he had three kids. He had Abram, Haran, and Nahal. I think it was the other one. But Haran, I think, is the one who died early, and that's the one who had Lot. So Haran's dad, which is Abram's brother, died, and so that's why Abram was looking after Lot. And then his other brother, they don't talk about him that much, but he had some kids or whatever. But anyways, Abram went out and moved away from them. So he's away from Terah and all of them, and that's where his name is changed to Abraham. So now, with all of that out of the way, my goodness, I know that was a lot, but you should be caught up. And if you aren't caught up and you want to get like more details to the stories that I was just talking about, you can actually go back and watch the other God powers. But that was a hefty intro. With no further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Genesis chapter 18 and see what happened in chapter 18. The Lord appeared again to Abraham near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. So this is the place where he was when the King A and King B, that story that we were talking about a long time ago. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. So Abram has seen these three dudes and he recognizes them as something that he should bow down low to. He says, "My Lord, if it pleases you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue your journey." Now, again, Abram knew something was special about these people. He even called them my Lord. And I don't understand exactly how he had the intuition to know that these people are really special, but he did. They said, "All right, do as you have said." So Abraham went back to the tent and said to Sarah, "Hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough, and bake some bread." And so she had to just start. And then Abraham ran out to the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. When the food was ready, Abraham took some yogurt and milk and the roasted meat, and then he served it to the men. As they ate, Abraham waited on them in the shade of the trees. Now, Abraham has fed these men, and he didn't just feed them. He was rushing to get this meal prepared for them. Something is happening here with these guys. Let's keep on reading here. "Where is Sarah, your wife?" the visitors asked. He's like, "She's in the tent." Then one of them said, "I'll return to you about this time next year. Your wife Sarah will have a son." And Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time. And Sarah was very long past having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, "How could a woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my husband, is also old?" I like how she referred to her husband as her master, and not in the sense of like, it's just like they understood the order of things. Not saying that I'm a misogynist in any way, but there's an order to things that's biblical. Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, so which one of the three men? The one who was talking last? I don't know. Why did she say, "Can an old woman like me have a baby? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Right. So, who are these three guys? Is the Lord amongst them? Is Jesus walking here with these dudes? And it's Jesus and two angels? I mean, it's kind of sounding like that, right? So he says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Like she tried to lie to the Lord in this passage, which is blowing my mind because first we started with three men, and now the Lord is here. So amongst those three men, was it Jesus? And that's why Abraham was like, "Oh, whoa." And he rushed to, he bowed down at their feet and he rushed to get them a meal. Is that what it was? But then the men got up from their meal and they looked outward towards Sodom. As they left, Abraham went with them to send them on their way. "Should I hide my plan from Abraham?" the Lord asked. "For Abraham will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him." Again, the Lord asked this. Is he talking to the other two dudes that's with him? This would be so cool if this is Jesus, yo. There's no confirmation. We're never going to get confirmation here. But in my mind, the way that I'm reading this, it just sounds like this is Jesus. "I've singled him out so that this is still the Lord talking. I've singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised." So the Lord told Abraham, "I've heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah. I've heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. I'm going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I've heard. If not, I want to know." So the Lord wants to go to Sodom and Gomorrah because he's heard things about Sodom and Gomorrah. This is very interesting because, like, this is three people, but it keeps referencing one that's speaking. And then it's like, if this is the Lord, how has he heard things but not seen things? And if he has seen things and just has to see them with his physical eyes, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he has to see them with his physical eyes. I don't know what's going on here. But it is an interesting story. And let's just keep in mind that it could be like, it's still explaining that it's three men, but it's still talking about the Lord. So I'm going to keep my story in there. I'm going to say it's Jesus as we know him, but it's two other dudes with him. Maybe those are angels, right? The other men turned and headed towards Sodom and Gomorrah, but the Lord remained with Abraham. So it is the Lord and two other dudes that are maybe angels. And they already went to Sodom and Gomorrah, but the Lord stayed behind. Yo, so Jesus is right here, bro. That's how Abraham knew. He was like, "Oh, there's Jesus." Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away both righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living in their city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare them for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why would you be treating the righteous and the wicked the exact same? Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right?" So Abraham is taking his morality and he's putting it onto the Lord. But the Lord, in this sense, that's not a good thing to do. You're not supposed to say you're understanding over the gods. But in this case, the Lord is gentle with them. And most cases, all cases, this is how the Lord's nature is. The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake." Then Abraham spoke again. He was like, "Well, since I've begun, Let me speak further, my lord. Even though I am but dust and ashes, suppose there are only 45 people rather than 50. Will you destroy the city for the lack of 5? And the Lord said, Nah, I won't destroy it if I find 45 righteous people there. Then Abraham pressed his request further. Suppose there are 40 people. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. And then Abraham said, Please don't be angry, my Lord. Let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people were found. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if I find 30. Then Abraham said, Hey, since I've dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20. And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 20. Finally, Abraham said, Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak out one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there. And the Lord replied, Then I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abraham, he went out on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. And that's the end of chapter 18. So let's break it down real quick before we move forward. This is getting good. So, first of all, Abraham recognized Jesus, the Lord, coming to his place with 2 other dudes, which I'm assuming are angels. They are there because they're walking on the earth because they heard that something's going down in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they got to go check it out to see if it's really what they say it is. An outcry, like people, oh God, help, that kind of stuff. That's what I would think an outcry is. Help, God, please. And so God's like, come down in the form of the flesh, the Lord, and how he's talking to Abraham. Now, one thing he did do is he did promise Abraham a son, which we learned about who that son was last chapter. So that's who the son is that the Lord is talking about. He's like, I could do that at an old age. Nothing's impossible for the Lord. And then the Lord's like, I'm about to go check out Sodom and Gomorrah with the other people that just left. And Abraham's like, wait, what if there's like righteous people there? And they got all the way down to 10 righteous people. If the Lord goes there and finds 10 righteous people, he's not going to destroy the city. But we got to remember where they're going. Sodom and Gomorrah. This is where Lot is living at, y'all. Remember, Lot and his family, they live in that part of the plains. So this is his territory over there that he split with Abraham way long time ago. So that's where he's living at, in that city. I don't know exactly what their sins were. I've read in another book, which may be a part of the Apocrypha, kind of how bad it was there, and it was bad. But I don't know if that's facts or not. Anyways, I can't wait to see what happens. Chapter 19 is about to be crazy because we're going to see what happens when the Lord goes to see if there's any righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Thanks for joining me in chapter 18. I hope you learned something. And do something nice for people. I always say that, right? Do something nice for people. If you haven't done it yet, trust me, do it, because it's going to feel great. And then you're going to be compelled to do it again. And not just like doing something nice doesn't just mean give away your money, right? Sometimes giving away your money, you're like, shit, I could have ate a candy bar. You know what I'm saying? Maybe doing something nice is just like walking with somebody or having a conversation with someone or holding the door for people and just being like, you know what, I'm going to hold the door for the rest of these people and I'll be the last one to go in. And that's something nice. Anyways, hope you learned something. I'll join y'all again in chapter 19. Holla at y'all in the next one. Oh, wait, I forgot to say the most important thing, that you got that God power. On your heart, tugging on your... Get them.